Secret talks revealed that China prevented the transfer of Polish MiG-29s to Ukraine and thus kept Russia from nuclear escalation. Specifically, it was agreed that if the United States halted the MiG-29 deal, Beijing's generals would do everything they could to defuse Putin's nuclear threat at the operational level. China reportedly blocked the transfer of Polish MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine through secret talks with Washington. The Chinese intervention caused the U.S. to reject Poland's proposal to deliver its MiG fighters to the U.S. air base for use by Ukrainian Air Force. Beijing is playing a critical behind-the-scenes role in managing the fallout from the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, even though it's been publicly kept at a low profile, according to the latest revelations made by British journalist Owen Matthews, who writes about Russia in The Spectator. It's a weekly magazine based in the United Kingdom. China's real position in the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war has been difficult to discern. So far, Beijing has offered only diplomatic and informational support to Moscow, in which it has regularly accused the U.S. of stoking tensions with Russia. In October, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov that China will also firmly support the Russian side under the leadership of President Putin to unite and lead the Russian people, according to China's state media. In addition, Wang promised to deepen contacts with the Russian side at all levels. At the time, China has refrained from providing any significant military aid to Russia's war effort in Ukraine, forcing Moscow to turn to Iran for combat drones. Recent reports suggest that Russia could even buy missiles from Iran. In September, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, Wang told NATO General Secretary Jens Stoltenberg that China remains open-minded to dialogues and exchanges with NATO and is willing to promote the healthy and stable development of bilateral relations together. China wants to avoid nuclear escalation. According to Matthews, who cited a source close to Chinese People's Liberation Army PLA officials, Beijing's main priority is the Russian-NATO standoff to avoid any nuclear escalation and help achieve a ceasefire. This was evident at the recent G20 summit in Bali, where Chinese President Xi Jinping said the world must prevent a nuclear crisis on the Eurasian continent in a meeting with his American counterpart Joe Biden, marking a rare case of public agreement between the US, China, and China on Russia. President Xi Jinping also publicly called for a return to diplomacy and stressed the urgent need to find a peaceful solution. Therefore, according to Matthews, Poland's offer to supply Ukraine with its entire fleet of MiG-29 fighter jets in March caused concerns for the Chinese, as it threatened significant tensions between NATO and Russia. It should be noted that the fighter aircraft offered by Poland were early model MiG-29A and B craft with a low reliability rate and an expensive maintenance history. They were built in the early 1980s for the East German Air Force, and due to their low record and high maintenance costs, the Luftwaffe of Germany gave 22 MiG-29s to Warsaw in 2003 at a symbolic price of €1 per fulcrum. Also, operationally, these first-generation MiG-29s would hardly have made any difference to Ukraine on the battlefield against Russia's more capable Su-30SMs and Su-35S aircraft that completely outclassed the fighters of the Ukrainian Air Force. However, a NATO country supplying fighter jets to Ukraine would be an important symbolic, if not necessarily operational important, step towards direct NATO involvement in the conflict, Matthews writes, which China has blocked. And it has happened. Initially, reports in March indicated that the US was looking favorably at Poland's proposal to send its MiG-29s to Ukraine in exchange for advanced US-made F-16s. However, the Pentagon later rejected Poland's surprising announcement that it would hand over its MiG-29 fighters to the US air base for use by Ukraine. How China changed Washington's mind. According to Matthews, an urgent and confidential back-channel initiative involving former European leaders and senior officials and backed by China changed opinion of Washington. After President Putin ordered his military to put Russia's nuclear deterrent force on alert, the PLA began reaching out to Russian officers through military channels. Beijing's goal was to ensure that even if Moscow decided to use nuclear weapons, the Russian military would have to adhere to its long-standing nuclear military doctrine to use them if provoked by attacks on Russian soil. Thus, through the informal contacts between Washington and PLA, both sides agreed that if the US stopped the MiG deal, PLA generals would do everything they could to defuse President Putin's nuclear threat at the operational level. Quote, "It worked," unquote, the Chinese source told Matthews, adding, "The US decided that the procurement of aircraft was a step too far." Simmering Russian-Ukrainian tensions. In recent months, battlefield gains in southern and eastern Ukraine may have made Kiev confident that its forces could retake the Crimea Peninsula, a red line for Russia. The Russian Black Sea Fleet has been based in Sevastopol, Crimea's largest city, and a major Black Sea port since 1783, when the Turks ceded control of the peninsula to Russia. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Crimea was the only Ukrainian region with a Russian majority. An independent poll in 2018, conducted by the Levada Center, found that 86% of Russians in Crimea supported the annexation of the peninsula in 2014. As a reminder, Putin calls Crimea the integral part of Russia. Also, the vice chairman of Russia's Security Council and former President Dmitry Medvedev said an attack on Crimea would bring doomsday. An attack on the Crimean Peninsula would be tantamount to an attack on Russian soil. Therefore, hostilities in Ukraine must end as soon as possible. President Xi Jinping's call for diplomacy and urgency to find a peaceful solution has yet to be accepted by NATO, which insists that Kiev will decide when to come to the negotiating table. That said, there are senior figures within NATO, such as US Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Mark Milley and French President Macron, who have suggested that Kiev should prepare for peace talks. This is by Postagma. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.